There is perhaps no better or more appropriate week of news to be joined by Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist, author David Cay Johnston. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. So things have been developing fast, even this morning. We've talked previously about how Donald Trump reacts under pressure, under investigations. You've been watching as things have been developing. What are your initial impressions to how this story has played out?
Well, there's an enormous amount going on. It's almost impossible to keep track of all of it at the moment. But fundamentally, what's happened here is the dam has broken. Donald Trump had built this dam of secrecy, this wall of secrecy. It's now been breached in a significant way. And of course, it isn't tearing babies from their mother's arms. It isn't pouring pollutants into the air and the water or any of the other things Trump has done. It's national security that suddenly has gotten Washington's attention. And Donald is behaving in a frantic manner. He knows that he's in trouble over this, and he's desperately trying to figure out how to discredit everybody, which is what's worked for him in the past.
Yeah, and look, even beyond discrediting, we had the audio yesterday of him talking about either the whistleblower or whoever might have provided information to the whistleblower should be dealt with like we used to deal with spies or something to that effect. What do you think about this turn for Trump?
Well, Donald, is not very smart. He's not educated, and he pulls things up out of his hat. And he clearly has these violence fantasies. He's talked about wiping out all 25 million people in North Korea. He's talked about wiping out everybody who lives in Afghanistan. And so it's kind of not surprising, at least to me, that he wants to go back to the idea of hanging spies in wartime when they're caught summarily. What's bizarre about this is the whistleblower, whose identity we're going to learn pretty soon, he or she is going to testify. The whistleblower very clearly was someone who was being informed by people right around Donald. They probably didn't know this was coming, but you can see how openly information flows behind that wall about what Trump is doing and how little we've seen so far into that White House. But taking political discussions and putting them onto a server reserved for covert operations that are presidential level is a real good example of how Trump is trying to hide all the bad things he's done.
Yeah, so I'm curious so far, if you were Rudy Giuliani or Attorney General Barr, how worried would you be about being sucked into this in a way that might be consequential?
Well, they're both going to be sucked into it. In Rudy Giuliani's case, he shot himself in the foot the other day by saying, "I'm not a lawyer here." That means he doesn't have any confidentiality claims at all. I will not be the least bit surprised once we get a new administration if both of these men end up in prison. I mean, let's remember that John Mitchell, who was the Attorney General for Richard Nixon, and Kleindienst, one of his other attorney generals, went to prison. And I think Barr here, if the whistleblower complaint stands up, and it seems to be very thoughtfully and carefully written, Barr here may well find himself wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.